Starting my garden is hands down one of the best decisions that I've ever made. But there was definitely a learning curve for me because I had no clue what I was doing. Here is a list of some easy, some not so easy flowers that I loved growing when I first started my garden. And honestly, there's still, I think, all flowers that I still grow now. So I'm gonna start off with dahlias. And I don't know that I would say that dahlias are particularly easy or beginner friendly. I had quite a few headaches with my own dahlias. I always, without fail, have aphids on my dahlias. They love them. I can't get rid of them. And then depending on your zone that you live in, I'm in 9A, you will have to figure out how you want to overwinter your dahlias. So you could dig them up and store them over the winter. I did that once and I failed miserably. It was 100% a me problem. It was the person storing them that had all the issues. And now we just leave them in the ground. It's not necessary because of our zone. It doesn't get super cold over the winter. So we don't dig them up. I leave them, insulate them with like straw or leaves, and then we cover them with tarps. We don't want our tubers to rot, the ones that are in the raised beds. So definitely not really like a low maintenance flower, but I will say that despite the little bit of like extra work that comes with growing them, they are 100% absolutely worth it to me to grow. I've always grown dahlias. I cannot imagine my garden without them because there's just nothing quite like dahlias. There's so many different colors, sizes, varieties, shapes. They grow really quickly. They're a cut and come again. They're just the most like magical flower, and they're a beautiful focal flower and arrangements. I said in my wrap-up video that I think that anything in the color range of like peachy, creamy, light pinks, like that sort of like color tone, they go so beautifully with every other flower you're gonna grow in your garden. So that makes it maybe a little bit easier if you're getting bogged down by all the choices and the varieties and you're worried about the maintenance. Pick one that's like a peachy pink, creamy, whatever, and it's gonna be beautiful, complementary, gorgeous, matching everything in your garden. You will have no regrets, I hope. I don't. I've had struggles with my dahlias and I have zero regrets. My next flower that I'm going to talk about, I actually just made a whole video about them, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I won't go into too much detail, but that flower is Rudbeckia. If you want to know more about how to grow them, how to care for them, the different varieties, things like that, you can watch my video. To keep it very simple, they are extremely low maintenance. They are pest resistant, deer resistant, drought resistant. Pollinators love them. They make an absolutely beautiful cut flower. There's a lot of different varieties. Some of you gave me really good recommendations of different varieties of Rudbeckia to look up, and I'm very excited to tell you that I have bought some of those varieties, so you will see those in a future video when I kind of talk about everything I'm going to be growing this year. But yeah, I love this flower, and they look like tiny little sunflowers. They're just going to be so pretty in your garden. So moving on from Rudbeckia, the next flower that I am just absolutely in love with, and I always have been, are cosmos. And it's so funny to me because I'm always thinking that I'm gonna grow less cosmos. Honestly, I'm trying to rationalize it in my head as to why I'm always like, I'm gonna grow less of them. I think it's because they can get kind of overwhelming. They get a little unruly, they take over. But every year I buy new varieties and I plant more than I had the year before. Like today, okay, I was doing some research for a video and I found myself on a very popular seed selling website, and I ended up buying, I think, 15 different flower varieties, and a third of them were cosmos. They're all new varieties, okay? I already have like 5 or 6 different varieties already, and I just added like 5 more. I don't know where I'm gonna grow all these, okay? But they are such a beautiful flower, especially in arrangements. It's always like the last flower that I add to like a bouquet or an arrangement, just because it adds like that finishing, like airy, floaty, just like wildflowery feel that I love. They don't hold up as well as other cut flowers just because they are pretty delicate. There are some varieties that I think hold up a little bit better. Some of the different like double click mixes are super pretty and they're a little bit fuller, so I think that the petals, they just don't get like knocked around and bruised as easily. But the Rubenza is this really pretty burgundy single bloom Cosmo with like this bright yellow center, and it's so beautiful. Even when it like fades away, it fades into this like mauve-y pink, which is also so stunning. And so it doesn't really have a stage where I'm like, we can't use this. It's so pretty. The Apricotta and the Apricot Lemonade Cosmos are also like insanely gorgeous. Mine haven't gotten super tall yet, which is why I haven't reached my like peak level of excitement about them, but I'm just waiting for them to like blow up and grow huge in my garden. I cannot wait for that day if it does come. And then, I mean, if you want like a smaller flower, if you're planting in like pots or containers, I love the chocolate Cosmos. They're like these little tiny like reddish brown flowers, and they smell like chocolate, which is delicious and always makes me crave chocolate ice cream. It's a dangerous flower to have, but it's gorgeous. I've never had any issues. I planted Cosmos in the ground, in raised beds, in containers, in like little pots. I've never had any issues with them. They are fairly low maintenance. They're drought resistant, they're heat tolerant. They really don't take a ton of maintenance. The only thing that I will say, like I said in the beginning, they can be a little bit unruly. They weave themselves into all of my different flowers. And if I'm not cutting from them super often, I do have to deadhead them a lot because they have so many blooms and they bloom so frequently that like it's like a constant deadheading chore with Cosmos. So if you don't want to deal with that, I get it, but they are gorgeous and they're easy to grow, and I think they complete a cut arrangement personally. So yarrow I have talked non-stop about this entire year, so I will keep this one pretty short and sweet also, but I just love it so much. It makes such a phenomenal like filler for all of my arrangements and bouquets, and it has kind of like this old-fashioned-y feel with like these little tiny clusters of like tiny daisies. It's just so pretty. It is low maintenance, drought resistant, heat resistant, pest resistant, deer resistant. They're just so easy to grow. I did have trouble personally, which I don't know how common it is. I've read that they're supposed to be pretty easy to start seeds indoors for them to like germinate. I had some issues with them growing really healthy at first, but I started seed blocking instead of in cell trays, and they did great that way. They were super healthy for me. If you've never seed blocked before, or it feels overwhelming, or you don't want to try, it's honestly not that difficult to get into. But if you don't want to deal with it, I get it. You can just direct sow your seeds into your garden and the yarrow should come up just fine. The pollinators go absolutely nuts over it. It's constantly covered in like bees and different little insects in the garden, which it just makes me so happy every time I see it. So yarrow will always be one of my top tier number ones. And then kind of in that same vein, when it comes to like the pollinator love, I've been growing oregano for my cut garden since I started, and it's one of my favorite things to grow for like foliage and like as a filler. It's just so versatile. You can use it in cut arrangements. I cut it and use it in the kitchen. I use it as a companion plant. The pollinators lose their minds over it. I don't know what it is about the yarrow and the oregano that like really draws those pollinators in, if it's like all the little tiny like clusters of flowers, but you cannot walk out to the oregano in the garden and not just see it like swarmed and overwhelmed with like pollinators and bees, and It just makes me so happy to see that. I just love growing it. It's really easy. I will say that mine like completely exploded throughout my garden this year. So if you don't want it to be everywhere, you'll just want to like thin it out when it starts to kind of spread. But I just love using herbs in my like cut flower arrangements. I also use a lot of like basil and mint. Mint is another one that has like a tendency to just go wild and spread. So be careful with that one. Plant that at your own risk. I like to keep mine in like containers because I feel like I can control it a little bit more. They smell so delicious. They're so beautiful. The leaves are gorgeous on all of them. They all add like a little bit something different. You know, the basil and the mint and the oregano, they all have a different look. And then there's also different varieties that you can grow. I primarily grow Greek oregano. I might try some other varieties in the future. We'll see how it comes back next year. I think I might have more oregano than I know what to do with at this moment, but we'll see for next year. And then finally, zinnias. This should come as like no huge surprise. I feel like zinnias are having a very popular moment right now, as they should. They're so gorgeous, and like everything else I've said, there's so many different varieties. They are an annual. You can start them indoors, I think about like 8 weeks before your last frost. I'll let you know if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, you can start them early. I do start seeds indoors before my last frost, but I find that my zinnias grow a lot better and healthier, and they're happier when I just direct sow them into the ground. They are a heat lover and they are kind of sensitive to cold. So I do wait to do that direct sowing until I'm like absolutely sure that we're not really gonna have any more cold days, which is why I like to start some indoors too. That way I just have some blooming a little bit earlier. But they grow pretty quickly. They germinate really easily. I don't really find that they have a lot of issues with like pests or diseases. I think I've had like powdery mildew a couple of times. Honestly, that was kind of more in the earlier days when we didn't have a lot of like good irrigation. So if you don't have anything set up, I would say just try to keep your watering like pretty low. You don't want to like blast the stems and the leaves with your hose, especially in the middle of the day where like the heat is the strongest. I would always try watering them in the cooler parts of the day, like in the morning or in the evening, and just keep it really low so that you're not getting the whole plant super wet. But honestly, they really don't come with a whole lot of issues and like maintenance concerns. They are a cut and come again, and what's really fun about them is that they come in so many different sizes. So you can do like some of the Benary like giant zinnias as like a focal flower. You could do some of the more medium-sized flowers like the Cinderellas or the Queenie series, or even like they have the little Lilliput. I don't know if I say that right every time I say it, but those are like these little tiny zinnia flowers that are really pretty. It's just kind of like an extra like accenty type flower. I just ordered some zinnias in the order that I was talking about earlier with the cosmos. It's the same with zinnias. Every year I'm like, I should probably grow less zinnias next year, and then I grow more than I think I'm going to. So it's going to be the same for next year. I'm just going to accept this about myself, that no matter how much I think I should grow less cosmos and less zinnias, I'm probably going to grow more of them every single year. It's going to be so beautiful and exciting, and I just can't wait. What else? Is that 5? That was 5. So that's all I have. That was my list of some of my favorite flowers that I started growing when I was a new gardener for my cut flower garden. That was a really hard list for me to put together. There are so many flowers that I could mention. I mean, I grew like pincushion flowers and celosia and calendula. Gomphrena is so fun to grow, and it's like fun to dry. It's really pretty and it holds its color. You know what? Maybe I'll just like make a part 2 of this video and just keep talking about flowers that I love, which I guess is kind of what I do all the time. Please let me know like what was your beginner flower? What did you start out growing that you just loved? Or what did you start out growing that was super difficult, that maybe you hated it in the beginning, but you've grown to love it and now it's just like perfect? And if you have any questions for me about anything that I've mentioned in this video, just please let me know down in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I am able to. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.